we've got someone on the phone. I'm going to ask in advance for Bob, Dave, and Jason to respond to whatever it is Sharon is going to ask us. So let's bring Sharon up on the phone. It's Sharon Wells, right, Chris?
That's right, Al. On the line now.
Sharon, can you hear me?
Yes, hi, Al, it's me.
Sharon, what question or comment do you have? I've asked Dave, Bob Perlman, and Jason to respond to whatever it is.
I didn't ring in with a specific comment, only that, and you've already touched on 13 Ways, only that 13 Ways is probably my favourite poem of this week. And it was just how much of it I thought applied to the current situation with the pandemic. I mean, you could take almost any line from any of the stanzas and it just shrieks.
Wow. Do you have the poem near you by any chance? I know you're packing, but
I do have it in front of me. Yes.
You want to pick a section? Pick a section that screams pandemic to you. I'm very curious.
Well, the Blackbird world in the autumn winds. It was a small part of the pantomime. I think small part of any pantomime at the moment.
That's brilliant. Read that again. Read that again slowly, Sharon.
Yeah. The Blackbird world in the autumn winds. It was a small part of the pantomime.
Great. Fantastic.
And
okay.
also
the
bit about the blackbird whistling or just after. Everything is so strange at the moment, isn't it? And the mood traced in the shadow. It's just so many parts of it just feel like the uncertain times that we're in. Yeah. And they are very uncertain here at the moment. We're right on the edge of things again here. So,
well, as bummed out as I am, and we are, Sharon, I'm heartened by the fact that you can return to this poem for the 6th, 7th, 8th time, and see its connection to us. So we've got 2 sections you've repeated, and so will you
actually? I think probably more than the last one I said. The boards of euphony would cry out sharply. Is that one is definitely
Wow, I love it. Okay, so you'll hang up and make sure you tell Smuggler I said hello. Give him a little scratch behind the ears for me, and then we'll respond. We'll respond here while you listen online, and send in a question at the end of the Perlman reading. You're welcome to do that, and we'll see you soon.
Yes, I will.
All right.
Okay.
Great.
Good to speak to you, Al.
Yes, same here. That was Sharon Wells from the UK. So first Dave, then Bob, then Jason, briefly in response to anything that Sharon said, maybe the question of how this cubistic poem, 13 Ways, speaks to us in this current situation. That would be it's a reading I hadn't thought of. Dave Poplar?
I love the first stanza, especially. It might be my favorite stanza in the whole poem. Number 3, the blackbird whirred in the autumn winds. It was a small part of the pantomime. From a ModPo perspective, I love it because it's so meta. I mean, I think this whole poem is sort of a pantomime, which is sort of like using gestures to convey meaning. Each stanza is sort of a gesture. Like you explained in the video introduction, each one of these stanzas could be seen as sort of an imagist perspective, but you put it all together and it's sort of a cubist depiction.
Right.
And bringing it back to our situation now, I mean, one of my favorite sayings is, we're all in this together. And in a sense, this poem is sort of enacting that. I guess Cubism sort of enacts that. Even looking at a certain thing, there's so many different facets of it, but it's taking it all together, which is important.
I really like that. You put me in mind of a thing that leadership, all kinds of leaders have failed to see about the way in which masking and other ways of keeping the thing at bay is a collaboration. It's a crowdsourcing, right? I always think of what we're doing as some version of the following: everyone is smarter than anyone.
Yep.
Right. And I think, I mean, literally, when the species is threatened by something that infects us, it's an everyone situation. We have to think species level or beyond. And no anyone is going to solve that. It's got to be everyone. And that's the spirit of what we do. That's the spirit of 13 different ways, 50 ways of dealing with a pandemic. Bob Perlman, what are your thoughts about what Sharon said, or about poetry in the pandemic, or about Stephen's Blackbirds?
Well, gosh, first of all, I want to say I got somehow bounced out of email.
Yeah,
So
that's all right. And then you moved to a new location, so
I
that's
moved yes, closer to the Wi-Fi source.
okay.
So we hope that works. Anyway, let's see. So there was one thing just I want to back up one set of questions about thinking about imagism. And just to sort of say for the record, historically, imagism started out as a very fashionable impulse before World War I. It was definitely what the cool kids were doing, as opposed to everybody else. So there was a sort of a separatist gesture going on there. And then all of a sudden World War I happens and imagism gets thrown in the soup with everything else. And it does have a long shelf life and people are still interested in very, very short poems. But
Yeah.
just to say that there's that funny little divide from where it started and then what happened to it. Anyway, about about the Blackbird poem, I'm just totally focused on now on this the bauds of euphony, which is it's not the bards of euphony, it's not the poets of nice sounds, it's the gigolo, the like a bawdy house, the procurers of euphony. I mean, it's a very insulting term, but it's self-ironizing because Stevens is nothing if not euphonious. I mean, he himself is a kind of, purveyor of euphony. So euphony. So anyway,
I like that. Thank you, Bob. Jason, briefly in response to anything that Sharon said or the pandemic and cubism?
I think that I want to go back specifically to what Davey was saying about kind of speciesism and kind of the way in which thinking, being aware of our cohabitation of the world with other beings is itself a comment, like it is a kind of thing in which you can get lost in and impossibly reflect on. And what's really strikes me about, which I don't even think I've noticed before, but just the very first stanza is, I mean, among 20 snowy mountains, the only moving thing was the eye of the blackbird. And I mean, throughout the poem, there's an enormous amount of wordplay. And so what exactly does moving mean? And what is I mean, this is section 1 with the Roman numeral I, which is reflected in the eye of the blackbird.
Right.
And what's so odd about it is if I try to imagine a blackbird's eye, I don't see it, even if it might be moving around, I kind of imagine a blackbird's eye as appearing all black. So
right.
to, what does it mean to see movement in the kind of perception of a being that isn't human, I think is crucial, and in a way, I think for people who really love this poem, I want to really strongly recommend I believe it's a Danish documentary called Kestrel's Eye, which I'll post a link to on Twitter and Facebook. That seems as close in film as I've ever gotten to this poem.
That is really cool. Jason, thank you so much for that.